A billionaire named Charles Whitmore was known for his ruthless business sense, commanding presence, and ability to shape industries with the wave of his hand. Yet behind the towering glass walls of his empire, there was a hidden wound that had never healed. Years ago, his young daughter vanished under mysterious circumstances, leaving him haunted and broken despite all the wealth he possessed. Speech balloon. Please leave your thoughts and analysis requests in the comments section. Sparkles. Thumbs up, likes and bell subscribes will help us make our work even more exciting. Rainbow sparkling heart. Your support is our greatest strength. Cherry blossom wave glowing star. For years, investigators searched, newspapers speculated, and whispers circulated in elite circles, but the trail went cold. Charles poured millions into private detectives, spreading his fortune far and wide to trace even the faintest clue. But nothing came back. Each year that passed added another brick to the wall of despair around his heart. Though his empire flourished, Charles often sat alone in his penthouse staring at old photographs of his daughter, imagining the life she might have lived, the person she might have become. His world was filled with luxury cars, yachts, and parties attended by the powerful, but nothing could fill the void left by that one devastating loss. One humid summer afternoon, Charles decided to personally tour one of his massive construction projects on the outskirts of the city. It was unusual for him. He usually left such visits to managers. Yet that day, something urged him to see for himself how things were progressing. He stepped out of his luxury sedan, bodyguards trailing behind, and walked into the site wearing his tailored suit amid workers covered in sweat and dust. As he moved past scaffolding and machinery, his eyes unexpectedly fell on a young black woman carrying heavy supplies with effortless strength. Something about her made his breath catch in his throat. He froze, staring longer than he should have, his mind reeling. Her face, it was uncanny. The curve of her jawline, the intensity in her eyes, the subtle smile she gave another worker. It was as though he was staring at his daughter reborn. His heart began to race uncontrollably. For a man known for his composure, he suddenly felt unsteady, his hands trembling slightly. Charles whispered her name under his breath, the name of the daughter he lost so many years ago. Could it be possible? He blinked several times, as though trying to shake off a mirage, but the resemblance was undeniable. He turned to his assistant, demanding to know the worker's name immediately. The assistant quickly ran through the records and returned with an answer. Her name was Amara Johnson, a laborer who had joined the site only months ago. She had no connections to the billionaire's world, no ties to privilege, no history that suggested she belonged anywhere near him. Yet Charles couldn't shake the feeling that destiny had led him here. For the next hour, he lingered around the site, pretending to observe the progress but stealing glances at Amara. He watched her laugh with coworkers, work diligently, and wipe the sweat from her brow. Every move reminded him of the daughter who had been stolen from him. That night, Charles couldn't sleep. His mind tormented him with possibilities. Could she be his long-lost child, somehow taken, raised in an entirely different life? Or was this cruel fate, mocking him with someone who simply looked like her? He resolved to find out, no matter the cost. Over the next few days, Charles ordered a private investigation into Amara's background. He wanted every detail: her family, her birthplace, her upbringing. He told himself it was only curiosity, but deep down, it was desperation clawing at his soul. When the first report came in, it revealed that Amara had grown up in a struggling neighborhood. Raised by a single mother who worked 2 jobs, she had endured hardships that Charles's daughter would never have known. Her father was listed as unknown. Something about that word sent a shiver through Charles's body. The more he read, the more the pieces of a disturbing puzzle seemed to form. The timelines, the locations, the missing pieces in Amara's history all pointed to the possibility that she was not who she believed she was. Charles's obsession deepened. One evening, he arranged a chance encounter. Dressed casually, without his entourage, he approached Amara near the cafeteria of the construction site. He introduced himself not as a billionaire, but simply as a man interested in hearing her story. She was polite, though cautious, and shared bits about her life, her mother's sacrifices, her dreams of becoming more than just a laborer, her curiosity about the father she never knew. Every word pierced Charles's heart like a blade. He saw fragments of his own past reflected in her voice, as though fate had written this moment long ago. He began to test her, asking questions that only his daughter might answer, subtle hints about childhood habits, likes, and dislikes. To his horror and secret joy, Amara's answers often aligned perfectly. Weeks passed, and Charles became consumed. He ordered DNA testing in secrecy, collecting a strand of hair she had unknowingly left behind. When the results arrived, his hands shook as he opened the envelope. The test confirmed what he both longed for and dreaded: Amara was indeed his biological daughter. But how? The truth was darker than Charles could have imagined. Further investigation revealed that his daughter had not simply disappeared. She had been deliberately taken. Corruption, betrayal, and deceit wove a tangled web behind her disappearance. The shocking revelation was that someone within Charles's own inner circle had orchestrated it. A trusted associate, jealous of Charles's power and fortune, had arranged for the child to vanish and be placed into a completely different world. That betrayal had destroyed decades of Charles's life without him even realizing it. When Charles confronted Amara's mother, the truth spilled out in painful fragments. She confessed that she had been approached years ago, offered money and protection in exchange for raising the girl as her own. She had accepted out of desperation, never revealing the truth to Amara. Charles felt his world collapse. His empire, his riches, his reputation, all of it meant nothing in the face of this monstrous deception. He had lost decades with his daughter because of lies and greed, and the man responsible had sat at his table, benefited from his trust. Overcome with rage, Charles vowed to bring everyone involved to justice. But at the same time, he was terrified. How could he now tell Amara the truth? Would she accept him, or hate him for the life she had been forced to endure? He decided to take it slowly, spending more time with her, guiding her, offering opportunities without revealing his full identity. He wanted her to see him as more than just a billionaire, but as a man longing for connection. Amara, however, began to notice his strange behavior. She wondered why this wealthy man was so interested in her, why he looked at her with eyes full of sorrow and longing. She pressed him for answers, but he deflected, afraid of destroying the fragile bond forming between them. Eventually, the truth could not be hidden any longer. Amara stumbled upon documents, photographs, and finally, the DNA results that Charles had kept hidden. The revelation hit her like a tidal wave. Her entire life had been a lie, her identity stolen before she could even speak. Furious and heartbroken, she confronted Charles, demanding to know why he had kept it from her. Tears streamed down his face as he confessed everything: the loss, the search, the betrayal. He fell to his knees before her, begging for forgiveness, admitting that no amount of wealth could ever give back the years they had lost. Amara was torn. On one hand, she had long dreamed of knowing her father. On the other, the truth had shattered the foundation of who she believed she was. Could she embrace the man who had unknowingly abandoned her, even if he had been deceived? The story spread quickly once exposed. The media devoured every detail: the billionaire's long-lost daughter found working as a laborer, the scandal of betrayal within his empire, the human tragedy beneath the glittering surface of wealth. Charles faced humiliation in the public eye, his empire shaken, investors fleeing, associates turning cold. Yet in his heart, none of that mattered anymore. The only thing he wanted was Amara's forgiveness, her acceptance, her love. Amara, after weeks of silence, finally agreed to meet with him again. She looked him in the eyes, seeing not the billionaire, but a broken man desperate for redemption. Slowly, painfully, she began to open her heart. The journey was far from simple. Rebuilding a relationship after decades of separation was not something that could happen overnight. There were tears, arguments, misunderstandings, and painful realizations. But there were also small moments of joy, shared laughter, new memories being created, fragile bonds forming where there had once been only emptiness. Charles learned to let go of his pride. He traded boardroom meetings for quiet dinners with his daughter, power struggles for heartfelt conversations, luxury for authenticity. For the first time in his life, he felt truly alive, not because of what he owned, but because of who he had found. In the end, what Charles discovered did indeed destroy him, not his body, but the arrogant, untouchable figure he had once been. It shattered his illusions, stripped him of his pride, and left him vulnerable. But from the ashes of that destruction came something stronger, the chance to be a father again, and to finally live a life filled with meaning. But while Charles and Amara struggled to rebuild what was stolen from them, the shadow of betrayal lingered. The man responsible for orchestrating her disappearance, Harold Benton, Charles's former partner, still walked free. Charles had once trusted Harold like a brother, allowing him access to his home, his business, and even his personal life. Now, that trust seemed like a cruel joke. Charles began quietly gathering evidence. He instructed private investigators to uncover every detail of Harold's past dealings, every hidden contract, every offshore account. Slowly, a monstrous picture emerged. Harold had been siphoning money from the company for years, covering his tracks with clever schemes. Amara's disappearance had been only one piece of a far larger puzzle of treachery. The realization shook Charles to his core. For years, he had believed himself to be one of the sharpest men alive, yet the enemy had been right beside him. The discovery of his daughter had ripped open old wounds, but it also gave him a new clarity. He would not rest until justice was done. Meanwhile, Amara wrestled with her own identity. Raised in poverty, taught to work hard for every scrap of food, she now faced the reality of unimaginable wealth and privilege. Charles offered her everything: mansions, cars, access to education anywhere in the world. But Amara resisted, insisting that she could not simply erase the life she had lived. One evening, as they sat across from each other at a quiet dinner table, Charles finally spoke the words that had been burning in his heart. "My fortune," he said softly, "is useless without you. All these years I thought I was powerful, but I was powerless to save the one person who mattered most." Amara looked into his eyes and replied, "You can't buy me back, Charles. You can't replace the years I cried myself to sleep wondering why I didn't have a father. You can't erase the hunger, the humiliation, the struggle. I lived that life, and it shaped me. If you want me in your world, you have to accept all of me, my past and my pain." Her words hit Charles harder than any business failure ever had. He realized she was not a child to be protected, but a woman who had survived despite every obstacle placed before her. She didn't need a savior. She needed a father who respected her truth. As weeks turned into months, the bond between them grew, but so did the pressure from the outside world. Reporters hounded Amara, spinning headlines about the lost heiress, questioning her every move. Some in Charles's world looked down on her, sneering at her background. They whispered at galas, mocked her in private clubs, and treated her as if she didn't belong. But Amara was no stranger to cruelty. Instead of shrinking, she faced it head-on. When one wealthy socialite made a cutting remark at a charity event, Amara responded with poise and strength that left the room in stunned silence. The media, once skeptical, began to admire her resilience. She became a symbol of hope for those who came from nothing. Still, the scars remained. Amara often found herself lying awake at night, wondering what her life might have been if she had grown up in comfort, with love instead of struggle. At the same time, she feared losing the authenticity of who she had become. She was caught between two worlds, one of privilege and one of survival. Charles, too, was tested. Investors pulled out of deals, claiming the scandal made him look weak. Journalists painted him as a man undone by family drama. But instead of hiding, Charles did something he had never done before. He told the truth publicly. In a televised interview, He looked into the camera and admitted his failures. He confessed that he had been blind, arrogant, and selfish. He revealed that finding his daughter had destroyed the illusion of who he thought he was, but also saved him from a life without meaning. The world reacted with shock. Some mocked him for bearing his soul, while others praised him for finally showing humanity. But for Charles, only one opinion mattered, Amara's. When she saw the broadcast, she felt a deep shift inside her. For the first time, she saw not the billionaire, not the powerful tycoon, but simply a father trying to be worthy of his daughter's love. Slowly, her anger began to soften. Yet the danger was not over. Harold Benton, exposed by Charles's investigations, grew desperate. With his empire crumbling, Harold lashed out, threatening both Charles and Amara. He vowed to ruin them, just as he had years ago. Late one night, Charles received a chilling message, a photograph of Amara leaving her apartment, accompanied by a note that read, "History can repeat itself." Fear gripped him like never before. He realized Harold would stop at nothing to silence the truth. Charles doubled security, but he also knew that protecting Amara wasn't just about bodyguards. He had to confront Harold once and for all. In a tense meeting at a private club, Charles faced the man who had stolen his life. The exchange was filled with venom, old wounds reopening with every word. "You took my daughter," Charles growled. "You destroyed my family. And for what? Money, power." Harold smirked, sipping his drink. "You had everything. I wanted a piece of it. And guess what, Charles? For decades, I had it. While you searched the world crying over a picture, I was living off your empire." The confrontation ended with authorities swooping in, armed with the evidence Charles had gathered. Harold was finally arrested, his empire dismantled. But even as Harold was led away in handcuffs, his mocking laughter echoed in Charles's ears. In the aftermath, Charles and Amara stood together outside the courthouse. For the first time, Amara reached out and took his hand, not as a symbol of forgiveness, but as a beginning. The weight of years could never be erased, but the future was theirs to build. Amara later stood before a packed audience at a charity gala, delivering a speech that moved even the coldest hearts. "I am not just the daughter of a billionaire," she declared. "I am the daughter of struggle, of survival, of truth. And today, I choose to live as both." Her words lit a fire in people across the country. Amara became a voice for those who had been silenced, a beacon of hope for those caught between poverty and possibility. And Charles, standing in the shadows, watched with tears in his eyes, knowing that she was stronger than he had ever been. The story of the billionaire and the worker who looked like his missing daughter became legend. It was not just a tale of wealth and power, but of betrayal, redemption, and the unbreakable bond between father and child. Charles's empire never returned to its former glory. His influence waned, his fortune diminished. But for once, he did not care. He had discovered something money could never buy: family, forgiveness, and the fragile beauty of a second chance. And in the quiet of his final years, Charles often sat with Amara by his side, listening to her laughter, watching her build the life she deserved. It was then he realized the truth: sometimes, what destroys a man is not tragedy, but the arrogance that blinds him. And sometimes, from that destruction rises a love stronger than steel.